Welcome to another conversation in People in Fundraising. This podcast features interviews with nonprofit professionals who discuss their career journeys, lessons learned, and enthusiasm for working in fundraising. And here's your host, the founder of People in Fundraising, Tim Wilson.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode in Season 3 of People in Fundraising, a professional conversation series. It is Monday, February 5th, 2024, and today I'm really excited to welcome my first guest from Delaware, Jenny Kleintop. Good morning, Jenny.
Hello, I'm super excited to be here representing Delaware. Super excited to dive in. So thank you. I love your past episodes. I'm excited to be here to talk with you all about data and ops because
Awesome.
as you know, I love it. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And the feeling is mutual. I became acquainted with your profile on LinkedIn, and then before we started recording, I was telling Jenny that there's just a breadth of really interesting and insightful and for me, actionable content in your posts. It's lots of professional content. There's also content you post that's of the personal side, and I appreciate that as well. And you cover just a tremendous breadth of topics. And we'll get into some of those today, but artificial intelligence and fractional roles and responsibilities, that was a new term to me until I came across some recent posts from you. So it's just an honor to have you on today. So thank you.
Absolutely. I love bringing both sides because you know how LinkedIn is. It used to be way back when it was just for like jobs and employment. But over the last, I would say 3 to 4 years, very community oriented. And you post things personally, which is a little uncomfortable for me at first, but I do because I love to have fun. And who doesn't want to hear that kind of stuff? So I'm glad we hooked up because I started reading your content, didn't know about this podcast that you do, started listening along, and oh my gosh, you highlight people in fundraising. Like, who would not want to listen to that? So thank you for doing it. Thank you for everyone listening in because we're going to have some fun today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for your comments, Jenny. Those mean a lot to me. So tell us a little bit, we can see your name and the PhilanthropyOps. So tell us about that first before we go into our standard question, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So PhilanthropyOps stands for Philanthropy Operations. And when I started the company, I wanted to be able to focus on the data and ops and tech side because no other firm was doing that. They would drive, you have all the frontline, you have let's drive with that. And then the data and ops is like an afterthought. And I'm like, you know how it is. We're like the backbone. We're like the people who like bring fundraising to the forefront, especially with all the data and innovation and tech that I'm sure we'll talk about. Like I wanted to co-partner with the front end and really be true partners. And so for me to be able to start philanthropy operations and solely focus on that and partner with frontline consultants, it really has been like an awesome partnership. And there's so many small to mid-sized organizations that don't have a focus, don't have the expertise. So I'm able to go in and do that. And you mentioned fractional. That was new because it's different than consulting. Because consulting, you like tell people what to do and then you leave, right? I learned fractional through my DIY influence group to where it's you're serving as a team member for multiple organizations. And so I have I only take on 2 to 4 fractional clients at a time. And I get to serve like 1 or 2 days a week at different organizations as a team member doing the work.
Whoa.
I love it. I love it because you don't just say, I'm going to tell you what to do. I'm going to actually do it for you. So that's how Philanthropy Operations was born.
That is so cool. It's really cool. Yeah, because I get the sense that you're embedded in a variety of work cultures and consistent interfacing with personalities and people in Fraction. Yeah.
100%. It's people, your show's people in fundraising, and everybody has uniqueness, right? But I always have true respect for the frontline fundraising, I think, because I'm married to a frontline fundraiser.
Oh,
Have been for 20 years. So we balance each other, Tim. Like, I'm like, please enter your contact reports. And he's like, please make it easier to enter our contact reports. And we go back and forth. But I can tell you it has balanced me, because I used to be that like data and ops person that'd be like, put your request in, 2 weeks notice, 2 weeks, I'll turn it around, maybe. And then it's just like, I slowly like, okay, what do you want? When you want it? How do you want it? I slowly like can bridge that gap now in the middle, which is, it's fun. It's super fun. I love all the puzzle pieces of it.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. I didn't know your husband also works in fundraising.
Oh my gosh, he's always been in the front line. I've always been in data and operations for our
Ah,
entire career. So I tell you, Tim, the shop talk never stops, never stops. But it's good. It's good.
maybe I should have you and your husband on too sometime.
Oh, encore. We did do one in all of our years together. We did do one webinar. That was it. So that would
Oh,
be big time.
okay. Excellent. Well, thank you, Jenny, for sharing that piece about philanthropy operations, philanthropy ops.
Mhm.
And we'll get into that again in more detail. Our first question that I ask every guest is, please just take a few minutes to tell our audience how you entered the nonprofit development social impact sector, please.
Yeah, that's such a great question. And the way I look at it is I've always been a problem solver. So people would come to me, they would think something's wrong. They wouldn't know how to fix it. And they would just say, like, take it and fix it. And I'll
Yeah.
be like, okay, I don't know if I was naive or what. I'm like, okay, I'm curious. I want to figure it out. It's kind of like a puzzle. And I've been like that my entire life. I think it goes back to when I was growing up in a single family parent household. We had 5 kids. So talk about lots of kids.
Yes.
My mom never had any resources to do anything. And
Mm.
so we'd have to like get creative and curious and figure out how to get things, how to tap into people. And we had so much kindness and generosity around us. Like we would go on family vacations with other family members or other families. So we didn't have to pay for the vacation.
Oh,
Or athletics, we would get our fees waived because we would be on friends teams,
oh,
which I'm super grateful for because it got me a scholarship to college, which another form of generosity, someone donated. And so
wow.
I've
Yeah.
always like been around wanting to help, but also this kindness and generous environment. And so naturally, when I went into the workforce, like I'm like, I want meaning, I want purpose. What do you do? Nonprofit, right?
Right.
Meaning, purpose, fulfillment, change
Yeah.
the world. That was my big dream. So I went into nonprofits, and my husband actually saw the job description, and I had the word database in it.
Mm,
And Tim, I'm like, I went to school for information systems, but I don't want to sit behind a computer.
yeah.
It would drive me nuts. But I'm like, let me take the leap. And then enter philanthropy operations. Like, oh my gosh. For someone who's naturally introverted, like loves the computer, loves getting in the weeds, but then can come out and interact and help people who are not as tech-minded,
Yeah.
use the data and the tech and simplify it. It was like I sat in this middle where I could bridge that gap. And
Mm,
I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my jam. Like
that's
I
so
could
cool.
code and be in there, or I could talk to people. And when I get tired of one or the other, I go back and forth. So that is how my fundraising profession began. And I am so like grateful to be where I'm at because it's awesome. I love every bit of philanthropy operations.
So cool. And even as you were talking, Jenny, you were making the hand gesture, like I come out from behind my computer and I interface with people. Like, yeah,
Yep. It's
yeah,
well, you would know the stereotype when you have data and ops, you think of like these coders with these hoodies, which I do wear a hoodie when I code sometimes, but like people who can't interface with people, right? Like you can't be like that in philanthropy operations because you have to help every single group, and
yeah.
every single group is different, right? Whether it's a CEO or the VP or gift officers or annual giving, is just you have to be flexible. And I just thrived. I thrived in that environment and still
Oh,
do.
that's awesome. So, how long have you been in nonprofits as an industry?
Over 15 years.
Okay.
So I'm doing like 16 or 17 years now, which my gosh, we were talking earlier how time flies.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on what's changed in the 15 and 16 years. We all remember fax systems, machines. But it's been fun.
Pagers, all that.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. So much has gone on in our lifetime, Tim. I just look at my kids. I'm like, you guys don't even understand.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
you know, the story your grandparents would tell you, they would walk uphill both ways in the snow, and you'd be like, yeah. Well,
Right.
when we start talking about when things were 99 cents, or when we had to wait for a phone call because we didn't have cell phones, like so much has changed in our lifetime. It's a little scary, but it's exciting at the same time.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and sometimes, old things come full circle too. Things come back. Like the reason why I thought of that was Billy Joel was playing at the Grammys last night,
That's
and
awesome.
my
Yep.
four kids are like, "Who is Billy Joel?"
No way they did it. You're like, you don't understand, really? Or oh my gosh, that is a very good point.
But I mean, they're totally aware of Queen, this is Freddie Mercury right here.
Okay.
They're just in that stage of life where like culturally some things do come full circle, even if the technology continues growing and moving forward. So
Yeah. Well, have you been introduced in Converse shoes? Like that was popular back in my day, and I thought it went away. But then my daughter has to have Converse shoes, but not just Converse shoes, purple,
oh.
certain image, like it's like back. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh goodness. We could talk data, we talk culture, technology all day.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
yeah. Hmm.
I'm just curious, Jenny, in terms of your past employers leading up to Philanthropy Ops, what has that makeup been? Has it been healthcare, higher ed, arts?
It's been a combination. So
Okay.
I spent a lot of years in healthcare. So in the field, I was at a few different healthcare systems, all in the Philadelphia area. So I've
Okay.
always been around. I grew up in California, was in Pennsylvania when I met my husband. That's another story, but I flew to Pennsylvania to meet him, and always around that area. So in different, major different healthcare systems.
Okay.
And then each move, I wanted to have a different impact.
Hmm.
And so the first move was to be able to report directly to a VP and learn a completely new CRM system. And I'll never forget, my boss when I was interviewing says, we're converting to a completely new CRM database, right? Yep, I'm ready. Let's do it. Like, we're doing it in like 6 months, right? Yep, let's do it. So I'm like, I've always been like jumping, and I wanted to learn how to like navigate leadership,
Hmm.
connect better. And then my next move was to have Jenny, but the masses. And
Oh.
so I went into consulting,
Ah,
and I wanted to be able to touch many, many different organizations. I would say 80% was healthcare.
okay.
And that was a huge endeavor where I just touched a bunch of different organizations,
Hmm.
engraved in them, but not quite completely integrated in there, but helping a lot of
Okay.
different organizations. And then when I started Philanthropy Ops, I actually have one health client, but
Oh,
all different. They're all different now, clients, which now I'm integrated as a team member, which is very, very, very exciting to me because you know how things change so much
yeah.
in the landscape, and it gives me a chance to be open and honest. Like, I'm your person, I bring best practices, but I never put you in a hole or a peg, because things change.
Yeah,
And
sure.
we have to adjust, we have to tap into innovation, we have to do this, and that's what I continue to do, and
Hmm.
continue to be curious. And it's fun. No day is
Yeah.
ever the same. It's fun to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it gets back to what you mentioned earlier about being a problem solver. And as you were talking about, going from different place to place, there were specific objectives you wanted to get. So you mentioned navigating leadership. And So I think just a deliberate approach to where you're going next. That's beyond, the specifics of what's on the job description or the salary or things like that. So cool.
100%, 100%.
Yeah. So tell us, so Philanthropy Ops has been around for 1 year, is that right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm celebrating my 1 year. I'm a few days early, but I did buy a cake yesterday.
That's awesome.
I love to have fun. So yes, a year.
Dynamite.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'll have to send you a picture.
Please do. We'll put it in the post. I would love to know. I've got a range of questions about Philanthropy
Shoot.
Ops. So first, what was your thought process about developing and launching your own firm? What has this first year been like? And what would you like our audience to know about Philanthropy Ops, please?
Well, that's a lot of
It is.
questions, but
It is.
super excited. It's been an awesome, amazing year. Like I cannot even begin. I pause, and I know this sounds like cliche, but I just look up and I'm just like, thank you so much. All
Yeah.
the stars have aligned. The people have rallied around me this last year to give me support. And it's like I'm doing what I meant to do, and everything leading up to it has put me in this position to be in this such an appreciation for what I'm doing and the path that I'm on.
Oh,
And
great.
it's just awesome. I can't believe it's been a year. But what you're asking is how I got started, went down that route. I really, as we talked about before, wanted to focus on the philanthropy operations. I was getting a little drowned out at the other firm. And then naturally, with all of the cuts going across the board, I did a post on it. You guys will have to go look at it. It was my backpack and Panera post, if you want to look
Okay.
at it. But I was laid off through all the things that were going on in the post-COVID world that we live in. And I was all in. I'm always all in. I'm always loyal. I always dedicate myself wherever I'm at. So when that happened, like I couldn't be in my space. Like I couldn't be in my home office. So I had to go like to Panera every day. I had to figure out, just keep moving. And I started thinking, and within 8 days, I launched Philanthropy Ops.
Whoa.
In 8 days. So
Whoa.
I've already knew the consulting. I knew I knew I still wanted to have the same impact.
Yeah.
And then I had a few coaches. I never go through stuff alone this big. So I had a few coaches talk through. That's how I learned about Fractional. I explained I wanted to be integrated into the team. So I started to just put up a website, do the marketing, reach out to contacts, say this is what I want to do. I want to continue to help the
Yeah.
masses. I also wanted to continue to help on a mentorship at scale. So that's where I start to like go more into LinkedIn. And I just feel like there's so much need to help nonprofits and to educate and to provide resources at scale. And so I really love doing that marketing on LinkedIn. And so I just went all in there. I started working with a few clients, and then I'm like, this is actually my jam. Like
Yeah.
I'm actually having fun. Like the people I get to work with are great. I went from having like 30 plus clients to now I only have 6. And so my work-life balance was more in whack. And I just love doing what I do. I cannot stress that enough because you often have the front line, right? Or the front focused, and you have the data and tech, but often there's a divide between
Sure.
the two.
Yeah.
And my husband and I talk about this all the time. There's just like unspoken divide. Like we just got to break it. We got to figure out how to come together, align, and move forward together. And so I'm able to serve in there because I have like that bandwidth to understand deep in the weeds. Hey, let's get in with my ops people. Let's build that out, but then come back higher level to say, this is what's wrong. This is how we're fixing it. Here are your bullet points.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to keep Philanthropy Ops as a boutique, hands-on company. And so I have 3 people on my team helping with the engagements, but I'm integrated in all of those engagements. And I don't have a huge desire to get really big because once you start getting really big, I've seen it where you lose that personalization and customization and hand holding. I really want to stay in my niche, which is where I'm
Yeah.
at. And I love it.
That is
Did I
so
answer your
great.
question? I feel like I went like all over the place.
No, that was great. I mean, because I asked 3 questions in one. So like, I mean, I'm going to use the cake analogy. Like, those are all the ingredients, all the specific questions,
Yeah.
and you gave answers to each one that created this awesome cake. And what I
Oh
heard,
my gosh. Mic drop. Tim Wilson doing a mic drop.
hey,
Awesome.
hey, they pay me for this. But again, like the sentiments you expressed are just critical to both who you are and also like what we need in this industry. Love, gratitude, appreciation, dedication, the personalization. So you're in the right place. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm surrounded by such good people. And there's just this shift that's been happening over the last year of people coming together. Like it would drive me nuts. Like, yes, we have competitors, but why can't we all just work together? And
Yeah.
it's like that's what I'm doing this year. Like I have great partnerships with other consultants and firms, and we collaborate. Like, how can we make the industry better? Like what you're doing, phenomenal. You're seeing a
Thank you.
lot of this pushed out on LinkedIn. Like there's so many communities happening and popping up. Like
Yeah.
there's no way you can't get help unless you actively don't want help. It's just,
Yeah.
and I love being a part of that. I love helping and giving, and it's just fun to me.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and you're really good at it. And I'm going to say just sort of selfishly, like about 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, you posted, and it was very generous, and I really appreciate it. And you spotlighted me and someone else in your network. For
We Wave
people.
Wednesday.
Yes, yeah.
You know where that came from, Tim?
No.
I'm telling you, I love to have fun. Like, yes, data and tech, but I love to like laugh and smile. Like I was thinking of going to a sports game, and you know how they do the wave?
Yes, yeah.
I'm like, okay, and it's Wednesday, so we wave Wednesday. And that's what part of our platform you do so well, so many others do so well. And I like being a part of uplifting other people, uplifting the profession, spotlighting, because there has not been enough of that in the past. And in a
Yeah.
world where it's just so much negativity, so much heaviness,
Oh, yeah.
everyone's loving on the uplifting. And I love, love, love being a part of that.
Yes. Well, thank you. It meant a lot to me. And I remember in the comments of that post, you mentioned it was at least two, maybe three sort of alliterations. It was celebration, community, and maybe it was centering. But again, those are critical to the work we do, the community we're trying to build in person, in our jobs, in our networks, on LinkedIn. So it's just great to have a cheerleader like you out there raising awareness, raising acknowledgement. So bravo.
100%. Teamwork makes the dream work. You give yourself a pat on the back too, and everybody's listening. Like, keep doing it. That's what we need.
Yeah,
We need more positivity in the world.
absolutely. Absolutely. Um, my next question here gets to some other content that you have either generated yourself or you've been a participant in. And so just a few months ago, in November of 23, you appeared in posts and some videos with Stephanie Lemick. I hope I get her surname correct.
Yes.
Thank you. Titled Addressing Burnout in the Nonprofit Workplace. And Jenny, you mentioned how your work life is more in whack now than it was previously. So if you can expand on that, how have you, and this is a quote from a New York Times article about burnout and integration, how have you dispensed, quote, with the strict boundaries between work and the rest of life that can make a fuller, less burned out life possible? And that article is from a summer 2022 New York Times article. So as you saw that question, what came to mind?
Yeah, and that's still relevant today. I mean, you're talking about 2022, fast forward to 2024, still hot topic, and no one's nailed it, right? And when you talk about boundaries, to me, it's integration. It's figuring out what I love to do and adjusting. And that series, that was near and dear to me because I personally experienced burnout. I didn't want to talk about it for a long time, but you see more and more people talking about it in the industry, and that's how we help each other. So
Yeah.
when I met Stephanie through the DIY influence group, it was just a natural synergy when we got partnered together to do a collaboration project, because I could speak to it, to my experience, and she could speak to her educating on trauma-informed workplaces,
Oh,
because it's not isolated to just nonprofit. Burnout is like in every industry. Like I think sometimes when I hear burnout, I hear people wanting to leave nonprofit, but going, it's almost like you think the grass is greener on the other side. Not necessarily.
yeah.
Burnout affects every industry. So it's talking about it more, it's educating, it's putting things in place like guardrails and opportunities to make it better. And that's what we were trying to accomplish with that series, because I, with my former place, experienced it like no other. Like we would get to a place where it's just like pile on, go, go, go. And I remember once I told my husband, if I could just not care about my work, I would be so much, better off. But he's like,
Yeah.
Jenny, you can never not care, because I was burnt out because I wanted to meet deadlines. I wanted to get the work done. I kept taking on more, but we
Yeah.
also didn't get the resources we needed, even though we advocated for it. So I
Mhm.
remember like I would call up there. I was over a couple divisions. One of my counterparts was over a couple divisions. And every so often, we were so lucky not to be burnt out at the same time.
Sure.
I don't know how that happened, Tim, but we were. So we would help each other, like talk me off the ledge or talk me through this. And the only way I can explain, because I want people listening to recognize the signs. I think that's what's important.
Yeah.
Like, and it took me a good 4 years to actually recognize it. And it wasn't until I saw people come and go, and during exit interviews, they're like, yeah, I'm not dealing with that. But it's almost like we would walk, if you can get a visual of like walking up a stairs and then just falling, like feeling yourself fall backwards, but having someone else like put their hand up behind you to hold you up.
Mm.
That's what it, like I was in a constant state of that. Like, just push me,
Oh,
just push
good.
me forward. Like I hit
Yeah.
the ground, push forward. And so I just
Mm.
got to a point where I'm like, this is just not working. Everything's out of whack.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget, I was just flat out on the ground and I'm just like, I know. I look up to the big sky, the big man upstairs. I'm like, I know you don't give me more than I can handle, but this is a lot. Like,
Sure. Yes.
please just help, 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 help. And so
Yeah.
months later, that's when by just surprise shock, my boss took away a huge division. And that's when I knew he was taking steps to try to exit me out. And I'm like,
Oh,
okay, I'm going to use the 6 months I have to work on myself. So I
yeah.
started to get my mental health better, my physical health. I started to find Jenny again because I didn't smile. I was exhausted all the time.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's when I really knew I was burnt out. And so I felt lost. I remember telling one of my coaches, I'm just lost. And
Mm.
so I still did what I needed to do, but I dropped from working like 70 hours to like working 60 hours. And I took that 10
Mm.
hours a week to go for walks, listen to music, find things to laugh at. Like I laugh at myself, Tim. Like I would do the stupidest things and I would laugh at myself. But that's when I started finding myself again. And
Yeah. Yeah.
for those who are listening, I just want them to know, like, it happens. It's part of the world we live in. I think it's more publicized now post-COVID. I
Yeah.
think people don't want to put up with it as much, but I would say, like, recognize if you're exhausted, if your fuse is short, if you're not getting, it's the basics, the sleep. For
Yeah.
me, it was I stopped smiling
Mm.
and laughing. So figure out what it is. Find a community. I found 2 coaches. I was part of multiple communities where we would talk about it and we would help each other through it. It took a good 6 months for me to bounce back from it, and just figure out what balance is to you. Like, to me, it's not a hard division. To me, like, I am such a good place because I balance in a way of how many clients I take on. Rather than, I've always had 30 plus clients. Now I have 6. That's a
Yeah.
big difference.
Yes.
Making sure I take care of myself. And I'm a work in progress, I think, like everyone else is. But my message is like, find support. There's so many people talking about, so many communities. That's really what helped me get through all that. And that's what you're trying to accomplish with that series. Because don't get me wrong, I have no regrets. I feel like everything I went through is meant to lead up to where I'm at, which is an amazing spot right now.
Yeah.
And I love the nonprofit profession. I'm in it, to the end. And I feel like we just have to help each other shine light on it and give each other resources, because it's still a really awesome sector.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I love the piece you said you found Jenny again. And you mentioned that leading into your answer, what are the signals that people should look for in their own lives? What are the tells? Yeah, maybe sometimes they don't even see it. Maybe it takes a partner or spouse, someone else, at their workplace to recognize it and give a heads up. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
We've talked about your activity on LinkedIn and how it, in my opinion, it really is beneficial and enriching for other people that read your post, watch the videos. What is it like for you? What does it mean for you? And how has it enriched your career to be so active?
So I've been posting for about a year and a half. So that was right about when I was going through that burnout phase and needed an outlet. And I wanted to be part of something bigger. I wanted a voice. I wanted a platform. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm naturally an introvert. So I draw my energy from not being extroverted. Like, being extroverted exhausts me. And so I usually have to go recoup in a good way. But to me, putting myself out there was really uncomfortable and like didn't feel good. But that's where people were starting to do it. And then they're like, just go for it. And if you look at like my first video, Tim, I was totally scripted. I was wearing a terrible outfit. It was horrible. And even my first post, I think I posted about an exercise bike. I'm like, what was I thinking?
Oh, huh.
But I had to build the habit. So I went about it for like 6 months on my own. And then I joined a group. Julie Morris is awesome, DIY Influence. And I joined the group to start to learn how to do social. I didn't know how to do social. So they said, start doing selfies. I'm like, what? Selfies?
Ah.
Start sharing your personal side. What? Personal? It's a little dating.
Yeah.
But that was the push I needed to start putting other stuff out there. And then people could understand who Jenny is. And I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
And like my personality, my character, and like, this is what you get when you bring me in. And I just started getting more comfortable. And so over the last, I would say 8 months from being in the community, we support each other. We learn to comment. We learn, how many times can the algorithm change, Tim?
Right. Right.
You can't get caught up in that stuff.
Yeah.
And I have found community. And when you talk about belonging and connection and community, that's LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I encourage people who are listening to this, like, dive in. At first, I would just say great post in the comment. And then over time, I get more comfortable and have a conversation with people.
Yeah.
And I've met people in real life from LinkedIn. I've met people from all over the world that I never would have before my little bubble. So, I mean, you know how it is. What is your experience with LinkedIn?
Very similar. I'm not at the point where I post too much about, me, what's on my mind. I know there's quite a few people that I've had as guests, or they're in the pipeline to be on the program. And I really admire people that, share themselves as they're sharing, what they've learned in the industry as well. So for me, it's still pretty much, it's about the other person. Like when I post about these interviews, it is not, hey, look at me, I'm great, I had this wonderful idea. It's the summation of what you are talking about. But I have also found, you mentioned starting off with, hey, great post, and kind of leave it at that. I have found that to be true with myself too. Like I go from liking it or finding it insightful or clapping to actually leaving hopefully a helpful comment or a boost. Hey, that made me think about this topic in a way I hadn't considered before. And I found that people are starting to tag me in some of their posts, which is really thoughtful of them. Like Mina Das, who was on in season 2, she's had a couple of weekly posts and she tags various people that she knows, and I just find that really thoughtful, and I'm honored and awestruck to be even tagged by someone. So
I hear you. I hear you. It's just this. People want a sense of belonging, right? For the longest time, I'm like, what group should I go in? And I can't figure out. And nonprofit was so small, like you had to branch out. And that's what I encourage people. Like the community that I'm in is not just nonprofit. Like actually, nonprofit folks probably comment the least, but being involved is a sense of belonging, is a sense of connection, is just that if it feels that need to want to interact and feel like you're taking up space for a good reason and you're providing insights and thoughtfulness. And we go back and forth over the funniest things. Like the other day, we were talking about Ted Lasso. Have you seen the Ted Lasso show?
I have not.
Oh
No.
my gosh, you have to watch it. It's awesome. At first, when my husband put it on, I'm like, hey, what is this? But then it's awesome. It's like so real. And yeah. But anyways, we're talking about Ted Lasso cookies. And we're like, we're gonna go do a road trip to get Ted Lasso cookies one day. It's just the people you meet. It's awesome. Like it's about the people and the connection that I think LinkedIn is really, really good at doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I well put. I totally agree. Jenny, we have about 5 minutes left, and dang it, I wish we can get through all of the questions.
Time flies when you're having fun with Tim and Jenny.
Well, that's a great segue, and you didn't know that. But speaking of time flying, I want to go to question number 6, which is about a post from December of 2022. And you posed some questions about artificial intelligence. And I wondered, I'll read those questions that you posted. And would love to know, like, as time has flown by since then, do you have answers to some of these questions? And what are some new questions that you may be asking right now? So again, December 2022, Jenny, you posted, when I started learning about artificial intelligence 5 years ago, I remember asking so many questions like, what is it? How is it used? What is involved in using it? Why would we want to go down this route? Is it even possible to use for fundraising? That was one segment. And the second segment is, today, you're asking, what else can we do with it? Where else can we streamline people's mundane tasks? How else can we free up people's time from all the manual work? How else can we hyper-personalize outreach efforts? And how can we push the limits of what's possible? So as you got this question ahead of time, what came to mind about answers, new questions, other things, please?
Yeah. AI, artificial intelligence, is here to stay. I mean, it's integrated in our everyday life. There's so many things we do where we don't realize it's artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Back then, it was you had to, like, I was talking to the data engineer, the data scientist, like, tell me more, teach me. I want to figure out how to take this big black box and explain it for fundraising purposes.
Yeah.
And it was like secret and protected, like the secret society you had to be in. And I'm like, why? It makes no sense. And we're using it for base level, trying to predict who would make a gift, right? But then fast forward to today, you can still do that. But now what has happened, I was just listening in to the Nonprofit Leader Summit last week. It was all about AI. And what is awesome, and I was so inspired by, is there's communities building. There's the people in the for-profit coming over to help the nonprofit
Oh, cool.
with how we can use this. Because if we don't get involved, if we don't have a voice, if we're not at the table, it's going to continue to go and be built without us.
Yeah.
But to be part of the nonprofit and get to help shape, well, there's ethical questions we should be asking, or what data should we really be feeding into the models? Like, and it's no longer just about predicting things. It's helping you do your work. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I've never had an assistant. I probably never will have an assistant. But starting to use ChatGPT, I'm like, oh my gosh, Tim, this is like an assistant. Where have you been all my life? Like, I ask it to do things. I have a conversation. It sounds kind of dark, but I have a conversation. It's called prompting. You go back and forth to teach it and educate it. And then it starts to learn who you are. And it's like a free assistant in your back pocket.
Yes.
And they're talking about being able to do things like with gift processing and having to scan all donor acknowledgments and then parse them out to go into records. Well, now AI is going to be able to read those and parse it out. So you don't have to take the 2 hours to do that. Like, AI is going to be able to do that.
Amazing.
Like, the stuff that you had to like spend hours on before, AI is going to be able to do that. And so I know there's like a scaredness out there. Like, AI is it going to take over my job? It will not take over your job. I remember hearing, I cannot remember where it came from, but there was a quote that came out like, AI will not take over your job, but people using AI will take over your job.
Yes.
And to me, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
So there's so much there. And I would say join communities. When I heard last week that nobody's figured this out, it's true. Everyone can have more knowledge, but no one's the expert. But the thing is, we're sharing, we're joining forces, we're building together. And like the next 5 years are going to be pivotal because it's going to skyrocket. And if we have to be a part of it to help inform it, educate it, tell it what we want to do with it in the nonprofit space.
Yeah.
And if you ever wanted to join forces, collaborate, like now is the time. Like, there's no more hiding your secrets. It's like all out there in the open because that's how we learn. That's how we get better together. So I'm asking more advanced questions now because that's how advanced it's become in the last 5-6 years and how much more it will become. So yeah, it's a very exciting topic. I could go on for hours. We have arrived. I remember doing a keynote speech on the future of fundraising is here. Well, it is like already here.
Yes. Buckle up.
Yes, in a good way. I'm like, but I'm naturally curious. I'm naturally innovative. I know there's a huge group who's not, but that's where you have to lean on the people that you trust who will help bring you along. And that's why I like surround myself with the right people, because I want to learn. I want to go together. It's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, dynamite answer. Thank you. Well, Jenny, this time has flown by. I'm so thankful for the richness, the energy, the positivity you brought to the conversation today. So thank you so much.
100%. Thank you so much for having me. I'm already connected with you. So everybody else go connect with Tim. Watch these people in fundraising. Of course, you can all connect with me. I push a lot on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to catch me. But I love this stuff. So thank you for doing what you do. Like, kudos to you.
Thank you. My pleasure. And for our audience, thank you in the spirit of gratitude. Thank you for watching, listening, commenting, liking the posts. Jenny's interview will air on Monday, April 22nd, which is a special day for her. So you'll find there'll be cake involved, I assume, right?
Lots of cake and lots of candles. Yes.
I just turned 49, so yes, lots of candles.
Awesome.
All right. Well, it'll be my pleasure to post this, and have a good rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.